listening to the Art of Homeschooling podcast, where we help parents cultivate creativity and connection at home. I'm your host, Jean Miller, and here on this podcast, you'll find stories and inspiration to bring you the confidence you need to make homeschooling work for your family. Let's begin. In a few conversations with homeschooling parents recently, these questions have come up. How can we keep this homeschooling thing so simple that it works no matter what's going on in our lives? How can we feel a sense of forward momentum and like we're doing all right as the leader of the crew so that we can sustain this in the long run? I have some great ideas for you today, and I just want to remind you that we all need to scale back sometimes, whether it's because of a pandemic, a sick family member, a new baby, or mama's health. Life sometimes brings the unexpected. And it really helps to have a super simple plan for homeschooling in a simplified way, a framework that we can refer to and rely on no matter what. Over the years in my family, we needed the super simple homeschooling approach a few different times. Here's what that looked like for us. There was the year of a new baby, our third. In the fall, I was bedridden and attached to an IV pole. The boys were, I think, 8 and almost 10 and still not reading fluently. And we played a lot of games. Then in the spring, our daughter came early and was in the hospital for a stint. So there went my plans for making up for lost time. That year, we seriously completed one main lesson block for the entire year. We explored, I think it was just 3 weeks long, and we explored clothing around the world. We read books, we did some knitting and some weaving, and I called that a success. Then there was the year of the toddler. We decided to take a trip to Jamestown and Williamsburg in the spring of that year. So a lot of our learning involved reading books about explorers and native peoples and world settlers. For much of that year, it was actually really fun, super eye-opening to read about places that we then got to travel to and visit. It was fascinating, and we built up a lot of great memories during that year. So even though those years might not be described as typical or even model homeschooling years, they really have a special place in our hearts as we think back on what homeschooling was like for our family. The key really is, my message. Here's my message that I really want you to hear today. Create for yourself a simplified version of homeschooling for your family so that you can fall back on that whenever you need to and still feel like a successful homeschooling mom on those days or in those seasons of life. Here's where you can begin. Rhythm first. You hear me talk about rhythm all the time. And our family is our community. So that is really the place to start, is with our weekly and daily rhythm. You want to keep it super simple. And so to start with, focus on meal times and bedtime. If you want to explore these ideas more, I have a couple of podcast episodes. You can check out episode 3, Relax into Your Homeschooling Rhythm. And episode 13 is Create a Simple Morning Routine for a Strong Start to Your Day. Those are actually the two most popular episodes here on the Art of Homeschooling podcast. And they can really help you start where you are and build from there around this idea of rhythm. And that can hold the family together in a really powerful way. Okay, that's the first step. Second is the 20-20-20 rule. That's what I like to call it. And it's so incredibly simple. You might be surprised. It takes about an hour a day. So it's 20 minutes of the three main subjects: language arts, math, and science. Here's how it works. Spend 20 minutes reading aloud, 20 minutes practicing math, which might even be games or baking or something like that, and 20 minutes outdoors. 20-20-20. Because here's the thing. So often when everything falls apart and we don't know how to keep up with things, we think we need a more solid plan. We feel all over the place, right? Distracted, like we're not doing this homeschooling thing very well right now or at all. And sometimes we even want someone else to just tell us what to do. But I promise you, as soon as you find one good book and begin reading it aloud to everyone at once, curled up on the couch, you play a math game and you go for a hike, you will immediately feel better. So, the 20-20-20 rule. The key really to homeschooling is to set aside the time to be with your children, engaged in enriching activities, undistracted. That's the key. That's when the learning happens, through that connection and doing things together. And that's why the 20-20-20 rule is so very helpful, because it gives you a simple framework for those days when you think something like, now, what were we going to do today? Or, oh, snap, I don't have a plan for today. Or even, I'm so tired, I'm just too tired to even think about lessons. And now you have a plan, 20-20-20. Remember this important mantra. I share this all the time with homeschooling parents. When things go awry, you want to scale back until it works and then add from there. So after you've scaled back to the 20-20 rule and you're ready to build back up again, you can then take one of these 20-minute segments and build it out into a full-blown lesson block with a 2-day rhythm and all. Like, you weave in the lively arts, you add verses and songs, some movement, drawing or painting, modeling with clay or beeswax, turning stories into little puppet plays or acting them out, and making main lesson books. But even when you've taken one of these three subjects of either language arts, math, or science and turned that into a main lesson block, keep doing the 20 minutes of the other two. And that's your homeschooling simplified right there. Looking back on our homeschooling years, I can truly say that every year of homeschooling was different. But I see the thread of connection, especially with rhythm and the lively arts, that those moments of learning really happen when we're engaged, like I said, when we're engaged in activities that we did together. And truly, children are learning all the time. So having a really simple framework in mind that you can that can hold you up, really, that can support you no matter what, is a gift you will find through the years of homeschooling. Today, my kids as young adults, all three of them they're very curious, hands-on learners who love to read. They love to build things and spend time outdoors. They've been to college or technical school, and they're really primed to learn about whatever their next interest is. So remember, Even when life is challenging, you can keep your homeschooling so simple that it works no matter what. And that way you can feel like there's forward momentum, like you're doing all right as the leader of the crew, and that you can sustain this homeschooling through the years. Thank you so much for listening in today. And you can find the show notes for this episode over at artofhomeschooling.com/episode 21. See you next time. That's all for today, my friend. But here's what I want you to remember. Rather than perfection, let's focus on connection. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode of the Art of Homeschooling podcast.